You're only as good as your last violin, and every one of them should be better. You cannot say, you know, this is the ultimate. No, there's improvement on every one of them.
Hello, my name is Eric Benning, and I'm a luthier. I'm a third-generation violin maker here in Studio City. I've been here since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I'm much older now, but I've been here ever since, and I love it.
Eric was our third son, and he was approximately 5 years younger than the oldest and 2.5 years younger than our second. When the others were in school, Eric was at home with me, and Hans and I were building instruments. We had a workshop in our garage, so I would go out and work in the workshop during the day, and I would bring Eric with me. He enjoyed being there. There was a box of wood parts and pieces that I had sitting on the floor, and he would pick out pieces, and he would sit next to me in the workshop and hammer and file and just have fun with those wood pieces.
I would just sit there for hours just kind of tinkering around and putting things together, gluing them, creating shapes, using her tools very rudimentarily, but I really loved working with wood and with the tools, and it just seemed to be something really, you know, I loved the tactile, hands-on approach to everything.
So immediately I noticed that he really had a desire to work with wood, and I could see that he was very creative also.
I've always had great interest in woodworking since I was a little boy. And of course, when I came over here making violins, I engaged my sons to do hobbies, woodworking hobbies, and I have 3 sons. And when each one of them was 9, 10 years old, I invited them in the summer vacation time to come here in the shop. And I gave each one of them the same thing, a piece of wood and a saw, a pencil, and see if they could deal with it. My oldest son did not qualify at all. A few minutes later, after he was here, I said, "Thank you, son, have a nice summer." My middle son, when he was 9 years old, I did the same thing with him. He came. He had some ability there, but his heart was really in playing the violin. He has a musician's heart like his mother. And then came Eric, our youngest son, and when he was 9 years old, I could see right then and there he had it. And he made his first violin when he was almost 10 years old.
Hans and I never had any plans for any of our boys. We felt that they should find their own way, and that we would honor their gifts and their desires. Eric definitely had a very creative mind. He and Hans were actually buddies for many, many years as he was growing up. And Eric pretty much did everything that Hans did. We didn't need to have a plan. The plan just fell in place as he more or less followed in Hans's footsteps.
He had a very natural ability right here in the shop. He put his whole heart into it.
So my father said, okay, well, he shows some aptitude towards this, you know, and his idea was, well, let's just jump in. We started making a violin together. I think I probably worked mostly during the summers and on Saturdays. I used to ride my bike from Van Nuys here to Studio City down Chandler Boulevard by myself at an early age when you could still do that. Come here and work for 6, 7 hours making an instrument. And then of course summers I'd put a lot more time in, but I think it took me about 2 years and I finally finished that violin. I think I knew that I wanted to create instruments probably when I finished the first instrument. There was a certain sense of satisfaction that I had finished it, but there was a bigger sense that I haven't arrived. I haven't arrived at being a maker. there was so much that I didn't know, that's what propels you sort of to the next instrument, like making a dish of food or something like that, and you go, okay, well, here I presented the dish, but next time I'm going to change this or that. And that's how I approach still to this day. When I make an instrument, I'm like, oh, I'm thrilled that it's finished and completed, but I'm always looking to the next one, like, oh, what's the next piece of wood hold, and what's the next change that I can make? What's the new, what can I learn from the last one that I can incorporate into the next one? So I think that bug of making hit right after I finished making the first one.
After he finished his violin, of course, it became part of our stock, and we showed it along with our other instruments. And so it won. When somebody was trying violins, this is what they chose. And he was a very fine musician, actually, and played in a symphony. And he chose Eric's instrument above the others, and so he played it for many years until he retired.
We made a very big point of it not to tell him who made it until he decided that was it, and then he was doubly excited that this young man made it here.
The gentleman who bought it was a guy by the name of Raymond Wurfl, and he was a professional violinist from Topanga. He was in the Topanga Symphony. I do remember the first time we either presented it to him or we saw him in concert. It was at one of his concerts in Topanga, and I just remember taking pictures with him. I had to have my father's dress shoes on at the time, which were way too big for me. I just remember feeling very honored. It was something, it was an 11-year-old, and so it was very strange to be presenting something to this, much older man that he was going to use professionally and use in his occupation. It was a little surreal for me. It was his primary instrument. He used it for, I'd say, a good 15, 18 years professionally. The wear that you see on this violin that exists, that's his wear, because this was varnished new, so all the edges and varnish and the wear in the shoulders, that was all him playing the instrument, for hours and hours. So I'm very honored, and to see that it patinaed under his hand, that's actually not just for this instrument, but for any instrument. It's a real sort of the badge of honor to see them develop over the hand of a player.
Considering the beginning of just about everything, you can see that there is talent there. You can see it in the whole instrument. Of course, you can also see Nancy and my hand in it because we taught him. When the foundation, when the vision is there, then you go from there and get better and better and better. And he has proven himself over the years that he has tremendous skill, a tremendous eye for instruments. And I'm very glad that Ray bought it, because there's a lot of prejudice. The only good violin maker is a dead one, and here was a young man making violins. He was very pleased to meet a young maker, and it really gave Eric a tremendous boost that somebody besides Mom and Dad and us here in the shop liked it. Somebody that is a professional that loved it. It gives you a boost.
It shows the beginning of something very special. It holds a lot of value and precious memories. And I think it's a wonderful violin. It sounds wonderful too.
People ask if it's difficult to see the instruments go when I'm finished making it, but for me it never is, and it's not a financial thing. It's that these instruments were made for a purpose. They were made to get out there and to perform. So when they're here in my shop, they're not fulfilling their purpose. They're static pieces of art. It's my greatest joy to see them out there performing. Just like having children, you don't want to just have them hothouse kids in your house where they're not doing anything. Your greatest joy as a parent is to see them out there doing well. And so for me, that's my great joy, is when my instrument's out, to go to an LA Phil concert or to go see the Hollywood Bowl and go, oh, hey, there's one of my violins or there's one of my cellos, and to hear it in concert and to hear somebody, you know, enjoying it as much as I enjoy it or more perhaps. That's the joy in making an instrument, is to see it out there and actually performing.